great career in the NBA, and then more impressive, a post-playing career, C.J. Watson. C.J., how you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
You were in high school. You made a little trip to Alabama and came to our camp and played some there in front of us. Ended up having a great career in Tennessee. But
it's one of the fastest growing sports, and I'm happy I got in on it early. So how I started, a couple of my friends who I went to high school with kept inviting me to pickleball. I was done playing. I was like, man, I don't want to pick up another sport. I've played sports all my life. So
one day, you're sitting there and you got an NBA jersey on. Talk about that.
Even when my daughter was going through her recruiting process, it was like, you're one of the top players in the country, but we're not just going to pick any school just because.
Talk about that and that drive for you to become not only a really good college player, but then also become an NBA player when probably, the odds weren't in your favor.
Me and my wife played sports too. She was a soccer player. She didn't go off and play college. She just wanted to go work and, make money for herself. So she stopped playing. But
LeBron or Michael?
That's easy, man.
All right, welcome back to the Coach Mark Gottfried Show. Today I've got a great guest, a guy that I've known for a long time, all the way back to high school when he was a high school basketball player, with a great career in the NBA, and then more impressive, a post-playing career, C.J. Watson. C.J., how you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great. All right, I'm going to let everybody know from the front end, man, when you were in high school, you made a little trip to Alabama and came to our camp and played some there in front of us. Ended up having a great career in Tennessee. But talk a little bit about where it started for you. I know you're a Vegas guy, but talk a little bit about how it all started for you and how you became such a great player and the drive and that you've had and the motivation. Where'd all that come from, CJ?
It came from my parents. My parents were both athletes. My dad didn't make it. He got caught up in the street life, but he kind of pushed all that into me and my brother. My mom was a great athlete. She played every sport: volleyball, track and field, basketball. So it really started with my family just playing basketball here in Vegas, in the front yard with my brother and my dad. Those games were competitive, as any household would know. A fight starting, people saying they're better than whoever, and then as I got older, I started to be able to get a little bit closer to beating my dad every year. So that kind of gave me more confidence and belief that I could do it one day. And then also just going to the gym with my dad here in Vegas. It's a gym called Doula or Doolittle also, and I would always go down there with him, and I'll be like maybe 10 or 11 playing with older guys, and they would foul me, they would talk trash to me. So that's kind of where it started, and it's kind of where my love for basketball kind of blossomed.
CJ, I've always said, that you're one of those guys. When I watched you in high school, I watched you play, and you just kept getting better and better and better. And a lot of guys, if you were in high school and said this guy's going to have a 10-year NBA career, I'm not sure a lot of people would have saw that at that point, but you did, and you just kept getting better and improving. And so I've always kind of watched you from a distance, like, man, I'm really proud of you for how you kept working and how you kept getting better along the way. Talk about that and that drive for you to become not only a really good college player, but then also become an NBA player when probably, the odds weren't in your favor. You weren't one of those guys coming out of high school that was the top, player in America, that type guy, but you ended up having this wonderful career. So talk about that drive a little bit that kind of is inside of you.
Yeah, the drive came from, just like I said, being from Vegas. People, when you think of Vegas, you think of slot machines, you think of the desert, the heat. You don't think of sports, at least back in the 80s when I was coming up. So I think that was kind of where I had that drive to prove people wrong, but also prove to myself that I could, make it, or, maybe be one of the few that, could make it to the NBA, or at least get to college. From Vegas. So I think that's kind of where the drive started. And then also just wanted to help my family out. I wanted to get the financial burden off of my parents. So I know my parents couldn't afford college. So that was kind of really my goal of also getting to college, because my parents always told me that you can be one of the first in your family to go to college. So that was kind of the motivation also. So my family was never really big on just the athletic side. They were more big on the academic side too. So that's kind of where the drive came from, just to make my parents proud. And, hopefully, I've done that so far.
You had a great college career, but, then there comes a point where all of a sudden, one day you're sitting there and you got an NBA jersey on. Talk about that, because there's a lot of kids that, and I think you're a great example, CJ, of the guy like we've talked about, that you made yourself into a pro. Some guys are just so gifted and talented that they almost have to screw it up not to be a pro. You were opposite. Like you had to work at it and you had to believe in yourself. But I want to know for you, man, that feeling for you when you're walking out there and now you've got that logo on your chest, the NBA logo, just that feeling for you. And what was that like?
That feeling was crazy, man. It was like, so I didn't get drafted coming out of college. Went overseas. Actually, a lot of people don't know this. My agent called me during the draft and said the Detroit Pistons that year in 2006 had the last pick. He called me and said they're going to pick you with the last pick. I was super excited. I obviously didn't want to get picked last, but it's better than nothing. But the pick came. They didn't call my name, so I was really kind of frustrated and mad about that. And then so I went overseas for a year to Italy and Greece, and came back. I didn't have a good experience overseas. Every month, my coach got fired, so I had to relate to a new coach, learn a new language, and learn a new system, which was kind of frustrating as a point guard. You want to be an extension of the coach and stuff like that. So learning a new system every month was kind of draining, especially at that young age. So I came back to the D League, and then just decided to stay here in America for a while and try the NBA one last time, and played well. Got a call up, and I was actually the 100th call up in D League history, which was pretty cool. And like I said, putting on that jersey that one time, I remember like yesterday. We played Portland Trailblazers in Portland. Coach Nelson told me before the game he was going to put me in there just to see what I got. He threw me in there. We got blown out. We got blown out by like 20 points, but it was still a cool game for me to put the jersey on. Fly on a private plane, fly with players that I had just been looking up to or playing with them on the video game, like Baron Davis, Monte Ellis. Now playing on their team, being teammates with them, and them, being my friends and getting knowledge from them. So I had a great game. I had 11 points, and that was kind of like the start of the journey.
CJ, if you were, I know you probably do this a lot, but there's a lot of younger people, really, and not even just young people, I think, but people that go through life, and life doesn't always pan out the way they want to. And sometimes, like in your situation, the decision, you went overseas. And, a lot of players go overseas, stay overseas, they make some money, they have a great career. But for you, then coming back, you demonstrated a lot of grit, a lot of toughness to say, you know what, I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to give it a shot, and I'm not going to give up on myself. So when you talk to young people or even people that are struggling sometimes, what would your message be to them? Because you kind of walked through that. You walked in those shoes.
Yeah, my message to them would just be resilient, believe in yourself. And you got to have a great support system around you. Like I said, I can't give enough credit to my parents. If it wasn't for them, I probably wouldn't, be talking to you right now, maybe, or even be in the NBA, because I definitely wanted to quit several times, because I didn't get drafted, because I wasn't having a great overseas experience. My dad came and stayed with me for like a month. He just kept me, focused, kept me on my journey, kept me on my stuff, on my grind. And like I said, without them, I wouldn't be, sitting here talking, because they really, put that belief system in me and didn't let me give up. And I think that's the biggest thing, with kids out here, or just anyone really, if you have a dream, if you have a goal, just try not to give up, because, times may get hard. You may have some bumps and bruises in the road, but, as long as you don't give up and, keep working towards that goal, hopefully, eventually you'll get there.
Did you have to, CJ, kind of be honest with yourself at times too and say, okay, for me to get better, I have to improve at this, or I've got to get better at that, or, for you, the kind of practical steps along the way for you, like, did those things enter your mind? And like, because I talk a lot too when I speak all over the country about self-honesty. Like some people, they're not honest with themselves.
Yeah.
But for you to climb that ladder, what had to happen for you along the way to get from being a non-drafted guy to playing in the NBA and then having a 10-year career in the NBA?
I was always big on being realistic, even with myself. I always held myself to a higher standard, and I was big on criticism. So my parents and my whole family really criticized me my whole basketball career. Even if I had a good game, they would tell me I had a bad game or something I could have did better. So that was never an issue with me. So when I, received criticism, from NBA GMs or presidents, I would always do my best to work on that. Like they said, I need to be a better leader, a better playmaker. They wanted me to score more. So whatever they told me I needed to do, I always try to change that around and listen to that criticism and, take it to heed and put that back into my game. So like I said, whatever they told me to do, I did my best to work on it, and that's kind of, I think, why I got to the NBA also. And like I said, it's never been a bad thing for me to hear negative criticism, so I just use that as motivation also.
You talked about this a little earlier, but I can remember, I got drafted by the Pistons way back 1987. I remember in camp, Isaiah Thomas and Joe Dumars, these are guys, from way back. But, those are guys I'd been watching on TV. I admired their games. I was like, God, these guys are good. Then all of a sudden, I'm in practice with them. And it's like, whoa, okay. And then you realize, too, they're really good. Like these guys are good players, too. And so were there some guys for you like that around the league as you kind of went through that league that when you were younger to say, okay, tonight I got to guard this dude, or, he's playing, and man, so who would those guys would have been for you early on?
Yeah, so for me, I watched like Gary Payton a lot, John Stockton, Jason Kidd, like those guys. But those guys were like transitioning out of the league when I got there. I think I played against Jay Kidd a couple times when he was older. He wasn't that fast or whatever. So I kind of, I guess, kind of held my own against him. But I think for the most part, I think the hardest guard for me was Tony Parker, because he'd be a guy that I kind of try to pattern my game after with the speed and the floaters. He didn't have a great jump shot, but he can get to the basket, and he had a great team around him. So you couldn't really sag off of anyone else on the team because they could all kill you too. So, but I think Tony Parker was always tough. Darren Williams, Derrick Rose. So I think that point guard position during that time was pretty tough because you couldn't have a night off because every night you had a great point guard or someone. If it wasn't a big name, they could kind of give you the business that night if you weren't careful.
Hey folks, this is Mark Gottfried, and I'm excited to tell you about Torque Sports, the free app that's revolutionizing how young athletes chase their dreams. I trust Torque 100% and stand behind its mission to empower the next generation. Players, post your highlights and get noticed by scouts and college coaches. And coaches, build your program, share your knowledge, and track your players. Download Torque Sports now. How important was it for you, CJ? Because, I had Mo Williams played for me at Alabama and had a great career. I think he played 16 years. But, I always say to people, Mo, he learned how to be a pro. Like some guys make it to the league, but they don't understand what it takes to stay in the league. And as you get traded or you get on a different team, you're playing a new system, new coach, whatever. I always thought Mo was that way, and I always thought you were that way. You were a guy that could play with the ball, you could play off the ball, you could shoot it well enough. So your versatility helped you a little bit, and you weren't 6'7", off guard or whatever, but you could play, but you also learned how to be a pro. Does that relate to you when I say that? Because I say that to people all the time, that some guys do it. You did it. You learned, and that gave you staying power. You were able to stay in the league then through that because of that trait. That's in my opinion. I don't know. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I definitely think I could play in any system, you can put me anywhere on the court and I'll be successful at some point. I'll figure it out. And I think Mo Williams was the definition of that because I tried to pattern my game after him all the time, especially when he was at Alabama. He was one of my favorite players. And then when he got to the league too, and then when he played for the Trailblazers, I think we went out to dinner one time, and I randomly bumped into Mo, and he was just giving me the praises, like, "Hey, CJ, you're doing so well. I love watching your game. You're so tough to guard," and that kind of really just gave me even more confidence, especially from someone that I looked up to, and ever since high school, to actually he watched my game. He actually thinks I'm pretty good, and stuff like that. So I think that was a big thing for me. And actually, like I said, he's one of your players, and I know you know him pretty well, but that was kind of a big moment for me in my career.
Mo and I are really close now. He's the head coach now at Jackson State, and he's doing really well, and he's like a son. I love him. And he kind of epitomized that position where he could play off the ball, with the ball. He played with LeBron. Obviously, they won a world championship in Cleveland. But for you, I'm curious for you with the success you had, CJ, and we're going to talk about your post-NBA career in a minute, but even in the league, defining – I get asked this question all the time, define the most important qualities and characteristics in a point guard. What would you say those are?
I would say being an extension of the coach, being able to be a leader, being able to talk to your teammates, because some players you can yell at, some players you can't yell at. You got to figure out that fine line, but also just being able to score, but also knowing the time and score of everything. So I think getting your teammates the ball in certain situations, but also being able to be aggressive and still be effective.
It's such a great quality, and I think the great ones, like you played a long time, they understand that position. They understand what they have to do. CJ, let's switch gears a little bit, because I've been as impressed with you, and even when I met you in high school, you're just an impressive young guy. And I think I'm trying to remember back then. I think we were also recruiting Ron Steele at Alabama, and I think he was a local guy, and I think it might have been in your same grade, or maybe a grade behind you. But you've always been such an impressive person. And while you were playing in the NBA, were you always thinking about, okay, what happens after this? Or did you, because you've done such a good job after playing, a lot of guys don't. It's a hard transition for them. But you transitioned into doing some amazing things. I want you to talk about that a little bit if you can.
Yeah, so I think like I said, it's back to my support system. My mom, when I was younger, she would always have me go with her to conferences and seminars. I didn't want to go, but I had no choice. So I think that was kind of the start of it. And every summer, the NBA would put on these kind of like fellowships or shadow things and seminars also. So I would always go to like the real estate conference. I went to EA Sports. I went to the Google campus just to see what I was interested in and to see if I would like things like that. So like I said, I never really knew when my career would be over. I was definitely undrafted, so any time I can get injured, get cut. So I was trying to prepare for the most part. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I kind of had a sense of what I liked and what I didn't like just from going to those things in the summertime to see, if it piques my interest.
Talk a little bit about what you do now, because I think you got your hand in a lot of different pots and you're just doing such a good job. And CJ, too, I think, like I said, it's impressive because I've played with some guys in college. I know a lot of guys. I had players that I coached that really struggled. They struggled when their career ended, their playing career. They struggled to find that transition to, okay, I'm 28 years old and what am I going to do now? And talk a little bit about what you're doing and all the things you're involved with, because I think it's such a great lesson for a lot of young guys as their playing career, because it's going to end for everybody at some point. It just ends, and you're still young.
Yeah, I agree. I think basketball is taking up or any sport, whatever sport you play, can take up so much of your life, and you're always consumed just with that sport. So you never really have the chance to really do nothing else, or or kind of pique your interest, whatever piques your interest. So, but now I've been a children's author. I've written 4 children's books, published a coloring book also. I didn't want to be an author. It was just really just something I kind of just fell into. I was done playing. I said, how can I continue to be an inspiration to kids, but also tell my story? And I thought, why not put that in a book? So that's kind of how my author journey started. I also have a foundation here in Vegas for kids in the inner city where I grew up at. We put on a free basketball camp every year. We put on a Black History essay contest and an out-of-school program through the school year. Then also been an angel investor. I love tech. I love sports and wellness. I want to be a minority owner someday. So I invested in a pickleball team. I love pickleball. So like I said, I've just been doing those things. I'm also an ambassador and advisor for some startup companies too. So just always trying to, I think even as a basketball player, I wasn't really just good at one thing. I was good at I was decent at a whole bunch of things. That's kind of why I feel like I stuck so well. So that's kind of the journey I'm taking also as an entrepreneur. I don't just like one lane. I like a whole bunch of different things. So if I can continue to kind of do that and gain wisdom and knowledge over all these different markets and spaces, I'll, definitely something will be good for me over time.
CJ, it's so impressive, but I'm gonna dive into one topic because you piqued my interest right there. I play pickleball about 4 or 5 days a week, and I've caught the bug like everybody. We're out there playing, and I live in Newport Beach, so it's sunny, and we got great weather every day, and so I'm out there playing. But talk about your interest in pickleball. Where did it start? And then obviously now people don't even realize there's a lot of people that are investing in teams in pickleball, the pro teams in pickleball. This thing is blown up a little bit more than people realize.
Yeah, it's one of the fastest growing sports, and I'm happy I got in on it early. So how I started couple of my friends who I went to high school with kept inviting me to pickleball. I was done playing. I was like, man, I don't want to pick up another sport. I've played sports all my life, so my body can't take it anymore. So I was like, all right, I'll go with them. I played it. I loved it. I loved more so the community aspect behind pickleball than the actual sport. I just think, it brings a lot of people together from different races, different cultures, and it's just a fun game. So that's how I got started playing pickleball. And then the next day, someone sent me opportunity to invest in a team. That's kind of how it happened. I was like, hey, I might as well just take this chance. And that's kind of how the pickleball journey started.
I've had Tyler Hansborough that played at North Carolina, played in the league a long time. I've had Tyler on my show. And, they called him Psycho when he played. He was a great player, unbelievable. And, but, he's 6'10" and big and strong and athletic and quick for his size. And he is a pickleball fanatic. I don't know. Have you played with Tyler? Have you played with him yet?
No, I played with him. I heard people play it against him, and he's a beast at the
net. he's a monster up there. You try to get that ball by him. You can't lob it over him either. He's too big. Talk to CJ about your children's books too, because that's kind of a unique lane, especially for somebody like yourself. You don't really hear that often, where a guy that's played in the NBA and I know you've got a daughter that's an amazing volleyball player, and we'll talk about her in a second. But just talk about that lane of diving into that and writing children's books, because, again, I'm a young person out there. I'm playing basketball. I love the game, but I know it's going to stop one day. And here's a guy that had ventured into that. Like, talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I just thought education was really big. Like I said, my parents preached education. My grandmothers preached education. They wouldn't let me go outside without, make sure my homework and stuff was done. If I didn't get good grades, I couldn't play in the games on the weekend. So all that stems from me just kind of giving back, and also wanted to create a legacy for my daughters too. So I think that's kind of where it stood out, and also wanted to tell my story. All my books are true stories. The first one's about, dreaming big and making it to the NBA. Second one's about homework and having a chance to redo a project, and I eventually got an A on it. Third one's about bullying, how to handle bullies in a positive manner instead of negative ways. We see a lot of kids resorting to violence and stuff like that. So we don't want to do that. And then the fourth one is about traveling the world. When I was 16, me and my mom, I played for the USA team. We got to take a trip to Italy. So I got to see a different culture at a young age. And a lot of kids in my neighborhood, or I'm sure other neighborhoods, don't get a chance to get out and see the world and see different cities and stuff like that. And that just opens up a mind to them, to let them know that, there's more than one option out here. You can do many things. You don't just have to be an athlete. So I definitely think it's a big positive thing for me to do, writing books, but also, like I said, just tells my story and just gives kids a sense of inspiration.
Where can people find those books? If I want to buy them, where do I go?
You can go to my personal website, cjpens.com, pens.com, or you can go on Amazon, CJ's Big Dream, CJ's Big Project, CJ's Big Moment, and CJ and His Magic Socks.
I love it. Those are good. All right, talk to me about your daughter, because she's a big-time volleyball player, and I say this all the time, CJ, and I work with high school kids. I kind of hang around the game with young kids all the time, and I see their parents sometimes, and they usually, most of them are cuckoo, they lose their minds. But for you, having played, and you played at a high level, and now you've got children coming up, and they're involved in sports, how have you handled that as a dad?
It's been good. It's been a process. I think I never honestly wanted my daughter to play sports. I just prayed for healthy kids. I didn't care if I had a boy or girl. It didn't really matter to me. I just, like I said, just prayed for healthy kids. And when it came that time, I think me and my wife played sports too. She was a soccer player. She didn't go off and play college. She just wanted to go work and make money for herself. So she stopped playing. But she knows the daily grind too. So it was kind of it was great that we both were like-minded. We knew what to expect when she kind of got to sports. But like I said, it's been a journey. She started playing basketball, soccer, track. I can tell you some crazy stories when she was in track. She ran track her first race. She was running hurdles and couldn't even jump over the hurdle and scraped all her knees up. So we just switched her from basketball to volleyball. So Like I said, she's doing great, man. She's at a college now. Like I said, one of the best players in the country, and it's like I said, it's been fun to see her kind of progress and develop over time. And like I said, I'm just there for her to support her and kind of give her wisdom and knowledge and try to help her along her journey to see what she does with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And tell me her name and where she's playing.
Ayanna Watson. She is a freshman now at University of Pittsburgh.
CJ, have you had to, we're going to talk about NIL in a minute because your daughter's kind of involved as a college student athlete in this whole thing now where college kids can, make money and get paid. But I want to still stay with this for a second. You, as a parent, and, as a guy that's played, so you understand the grind. Like, you understand what you have to do to be successful. Mm-hmm. And now you've got children coming up. And what I see so many times, especially more nowadays, is where parents, and I coach some of these guys throughout the year, their parents, call it like it is. They just babied them so much, that mm-hmm. the allowing them to fail at times is not a bad thing. Allowing them to find their own journey and learn how to fight through the difficult things you have to overcome. So you as a parent, different than you as a player. Now you're a parent. How did you instill some of those qualities, or did you see some of that? Did you have to go through that a little bit with your own children?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I would just make sure I would tell her just stories of my own journey, and then have her, be able to figure out on her own. Really, I've always been realistic with my daughter. Never lied to her. I would tell her if people are better than her. So she would get mad at me at that sometimes. But I think that kind of sparked a motivation in her to kind of get better, but also kind of prove me wrong. So yeah, I think. It's definitely been times where she's lost confidence, but, had to get it back. But I think for me, it's all about the development. You can't get from one place to the next without taking steps. And I think that's what she's done well. And she's grown throughout the process. You can see the growth every year. She's gotten better. And I always tell her, I can't want it for you. You have to want it for yourself. So I definitely think that's where the line has been drawn, and she's kind of reached her growth period where she's continuing to get better because she wants it more than I want it for her. So, and I'll always tell her that I'll be there to support you, but I can't do it for you. You gotta go put the work in. I can tell you all the stories, give you all the knowledge and the wisdom and stuff like that, but you got to go out there and do it and succeed and fail at times to really see what you're capable of.
How about, were there ever any times with her where she came home and the coach yelled at me, or I don't like the coach, or the coach this, or the coach that, because that's just natural sometimes for kids. That's just, that's a natural thing. But the key, in my opinion, sometimes is the parent's response to that and how you work through that. It's not always the coach's fault. Sometimes you just got to get better. Did you ever have those moments with her?
Oh yeah, all the time, especially when she started, especially when you're younger. And I think when you're, like I said, I'm a boy or man or whatever, so I don't know how it feels to be a girl. So at times, girls are more sensitive at times and stuff like that. So I definitely think she felt those times. And there's definitely times she wanted to quit. She said, "Oh, Dad, I don't want to go back to practice," crying in the car, these long car rides home. So I definitely think, it's a process. And I think the parents, like you said, they can really make or break your kid. And for us, we've always been honest with our kid and tell her, hey, you just got to go back and put the work in, or hey, go have a talk with your coach, go see what you can do better at, or why he yelled at you. So I think we've never been the parents to just say, hey, no, it's not the coach's fault, it's your fault, or sorry, it's not your fault, it's the coach's fault. So, but yeah, we've always been big and just telling her, you got to do the right thing. And like I said, quitting is never an option. So we started this process, this journey. You agreed you wanted to do it. So we gotta figure it out, and we'll figure it out. But you gotta also be honest with yourself.
CJ, talk about a little bit. I'm curious as your take now, because you played college basketball. You played way before. And I always say this landscape now in college athletics, we've changed the rules here and there, and we've always, there's been legislation, you can and can't do this, but, the opportunity for young people to make money in college, to get paid, then obviously transfer every year without having to sit out. You can go to 4 schools in 4 years.
Yeah.
In my opinion, those two things, they're like seismic shifts. Like they're like, we've never had any shift like those. So from your perspective, you played in college, you had a good career post-college playing. Now you've got a daughter in college, and here all this stuff is out there where there's an opportunity to make money. You've got the portal. Kind of give us your from a high-level view of what your thoughts are on all of this that's happened in college athletics, because it's certainly different than when you played.
Yes, they're very different. I think for the most part, I think it's great that college athletes are starting to get paid. I think that's been well overdue, and I still don't think they're getting their cut of it. So, but I definitely think that's a great part. I definitely think the rules have to change. There has to be something about the portal. I don't think should be two portals. I know in volleyball there's two portals. I don't know about any other sports. But I definitely think, the rules for transferring have to change too, because you shouldn't be able to allow to transfer from one school to the next and without sitting out and stuff like that. So I definitely think there has to be some rules around it. But for the most part, I definitely think, student athletes should be getting paid. And I think I would want some more wisdom and knowledge around the teaching of financial literacy for kids, because they're getting all this money, but they don't know what to do with it. Or maybe they're getting it and their parents never had any money, and now they're eating off the kids and not really saving and benefiting the kids for the future. So that's been the most part from my conversations with my daughter. Just make sure you're saving your money. You gotta taxes are coming around, so you can't just spend all your money if you wanted to. If you don't pay your taxes, you're going to jail. So so it's just little things like that. I think financial literacy is super big, and obviously it's not taught in schools, but that's another topic for another day.
CJ, I go back to Alabama a lot. They've honored some of the teams we've had, and I talked to some guys that, that I coached that maybe as freshmen they didn't play. I had a big kid named Chuck Davis. He ended up being a really good player at Alabama. Tore his knee his senior year. I thought he maybe had a chance to play after, but, had a really bad injury. But, we talk, and he says, Coach, if the rules were back then like they are today, I'd have transferred after my freshman year. I'd have left because you didn't play me.
Right.
But the answer then was, and I understand sometimes transferring is good. I get it. I understand that. I'm not against that altogether. But I think when I go back to a guy like him, the answer wasn't just to go transfer. The answer was to get better.
Mm-hmm.
Like he had to get better, and he did get better. And then his sophomore year, we opened up the season in the Madison Square Garden, and we played Pitt. He had 26 points and 14 rebounds, and I didn't hardly play him as a freshman. And he had a great couple 2 or 3 years, but I'm sure there were guys you played with. I'm sure it probably crept into your mind at some point throughout your career. But would you agree, like today, I think guys, it's just too easy to like cut and run. It's just too easy. And we're losing that ability as a coach in a university to say, no, the answer is get better. Just get better. How about that answer rather than changing schools? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I definitely think there's a time and place and a situation for every reason why to transfer. But for the most part, you just gotta, like I said, you gotta look in the mirror and get better. How can I get better? How can I help my team? And same thing, like even when my daughter was going through her recruiting process, it was like, you're one of the top players in the country, but we're not just going to pick any school just because of the name of the school. I think that's where a lot of players and student athletes go wrong. Also, they just pick the name of the school and not really look into the situation, what's there, the coaches, can I develop there and get better? And that was my whole message to her was, where can you get better at? Where can you see yourself, to stay all 4 years? Because we're not the family to just up and leave just because of a certain situation or you're not playing. So you got to really figure that out and take a deep dive into the coaches and the coaching staff. So I think that's kind of what I think kids just pick a name of the school instead of picking the situation where they can really develop and get better over time.
CJ, I see a lot of players nowadays. They almost change schools every year. And one thing I always ask myself is, how are they going to graduate? Like,
Right.
if you weren't an athlete and you just were a student, a normal student that didn't play sports, but you transferred to 4 schools in 4 years.
Yeah.
Like, how does that person ever graduate from college? And so I even think in this era we're in right now that we're kind of losing the importance of even getting a degree, because it seems like the players are just chasing the biggest bag of money I can get. I'm going to go get it. And it bothers me a little bit because I want players to make money. I'm all for it. I'm all for paying them. I think we should have paid them a long time ago.
Yeah.
And but I also think we're missing that part of it, of graduating. And just like yourself. You're a college graduate. You had a great career, but you always have that degree to fall back on. And I think we're losing that a little bit.
Yeah, I think it starts with AAU. Everyone's just chasing the bag or chasing the best team and stuff like that. It's not even about developing anymore. It's just about, who can I get on my team to make the biggest run and stuff like that. So that mindset and mind frame continues into college and after college. So I definitely think those things have to change, and has to change at the start of the grassroots. And that's where all the problems start, I feel like.
That's a great point. Because it does start early. And,
sure.
One thing I hate, too, when I look at these young guys, and I live here at Newport Beach, I'm very close to a lot of the parents and players at a high school called Corona Del Mar, but, they've got a really good player there. And I don't like the fact, too, that kids nowadays, they almost are thinking when they're in high school, we've allowed this to kind of creep in there where they're thinking, okay, I can go to this school for 1 year, and if I play well, then I can get recruited to this school. And if I play well, then I can, and we're almost conditioning the young kids to already think about transferring. They haven't got school yet. They haven't got there yet. And they're thinking about a journey where they're going to have all these different schools. And I don't know if I like that either. I just don't think that's what college is all about.
Yeah, and no one's really living in the moment. They're already looking to the future, and you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. So you just got to, live in the moment, be where your feet are. One of my coaches is always big on that, not overlooking another situation or another team. Just be where you are right now and figure out, how can I get better? How can I help my team? And I think that's what's going to help, young kids these days, and, anyone really, because, if you're thinking about the future, you're not being present in time.
You are 100% right. All right, CJ, we're gonna have a little fun here, just because you played a long time, played against great players. I'm just curious. We're going to have a little bit of fun. All right, here we go. LeBron or Michael?
That's easy, man. Michael. I'm an 80s baby.
He said Michael. Okay, here's one for you. Kobe or LeBron?
I love Kobe too. Sorry, LeBron.
Okay, here we go. Another one. I got to take you way back. You might be too young for this one. Kareem or Shaq?
I definitely didn't watch Kareem, but I watched Shaq, played against Shaq. But I had to go with Kareem. He had one of the best moves that you cannot guard, and he's still one of the top scorers. So.
When I tell people all the time, CJ, first of all, he went to college for 4 years. Kareem did. So, like, LeBron entered entered the NBA out of high school. If you would have given Kareem Abdul-Jabbar 4 more years of NBA basketball, his scoring record would have been untouched. It would have been unreachable for any guy. And he still played 20 years in the league after 4 years of college. People forget that.
And he won on every level, too, I think. High school, college, level. And
yeah. I always tell people, too, when they have this conversation of the GOAT, sometimes people don't bring up Kareem, and I say, time out, my guys. Let's go back and look at his career. He's in the conversation if he's not the GOAT. All right, here's another one. You got to start a team tomorrow. You're the GM, and you got to pick a point guard, and you only get one, and you got to pick between Magic and Steph Curry.
Oh, man, that's tough. That's tough. I love Magic. Magic, honestly, is my favorite player ever. I do love Steph, but I'm gonna have to go with Magic for now, especially in the new era. I think you win with bigger guards, but the way Steph shoots the ball is undeniable. Obviously, the greatest shooter ever. But I'll go with Magic for now.
I hear you. All right, if you had to pick and you get one guard between these two guys, and you had to pick between John Stockton and Allen Iverson, who are you taking?
I'm taking AI. He's the coacher. I wore finger bands. I wore like the arm sleeves because of AI in high school. So I got to go with AI.
I tell people all the time, he's one of my favorite players ever. I just love everything about AI. I love his story.
Yeah, on and off the court.
And the funny thing was, I was at UCLA as an assistant coach. I wanted to recruit him so bad, but he had had that incident where he had, they had a fight in a bowling alley, and he was a little bit tarnished. John Thompson took him at Georgetown, but I wanted him so bad because I just loved his game. Yeah. All right, here's one for you: Steve Nash or Jason Kidd?
Ooh, I got to go with J Kidd. J Kidd was the prodigal point guard, man. He can pass. Couldn't really shoot that well, but I like J Kidd, and I always feel like his tempo. He ran like a running gun tempo, so I like the way he played.
All right, let's move to this position. We're going to the power forwards now. You got to choose between Tim Duncan and Akeem Olajuwon.
Ooh, Akeem is a power forward or a center?
We'll play him at power forward just for today.
I'm gonna take Tim Duncan, Mr. Fundamentals. He was unstoppable.
You got some good choices. I like your choices. All right, name your top 5 first team. And I tell this to all the. Here's the way I've had guys like Thurl Bailey, Thurl, and Robert Ory. They've been on my show. I've asked them this fun question. You got to start it. You got to pick a 5, all-time starting 5. But here's the deal: if your 5 loses the game, you'll never get to go to a gym the rest of your life. You can't even go into a gym to play.
Yeah.
So you have to win, and you got 5 guys. Who is your 5 guys, CJ Washington? Now you're a pro. You played for a decade, so you got a lot of experience. So who's your top 5 first team all-time NBA team?
So the point, I'm gonna go with Steph. 2 guard, I'm gonna go with Jordan. 3 guard, I'm gonna go with KD. 4, I'm gonna go with Tim Duncan. 5, I'm gonna go with Shaq.
Well, how'd you pick Kareem over Shaq a little bit ago, and you picked Magic?
Yeah, I did, but for as a one-on-one player, yes, but as a team situation, Shaq's just the most dominant player. On pick and rolls, we can just drop with him, so it don't matter. Anything at the rim, he's gonna contest it. It don't matter. So yeah, I'm going with Shaq.
Where did you have the most fun, CJ? What city, what arena, what team did you have the most fun as an opponent going into play?
I would say playing in Madison Square Garden was unbelievable. I think, just the crowd. Sometimes I played there when the Knicks were good, and then sometimes when they were bad too. So, but the crowd was still there. They were still fun. They were still energetic. They would cheer for us if we had a good team. So, I think playing in Madison Square Garden was unreal.
Who was your favorite teammate, CJ, to play with?
My favorite teammate, man, I got a couple. I would say Joakim Noah, just from our battles in college. I actually knocked his tooth out one game, but then being his teammate, he was so fun. It was always fun playing with him. So, and then I would say maybe David West too was one of my favorite teammates.
What a great player he was. People forget sometimes how good a player David West was.
He was good.
Raleigh, North Carolina, too.
Yep.
Went to Xavier, but what a player. And he had staying power for a long time.
Yeah, he was an all-star, too, so people don't forget about that, too.
Yeah. Do you have a team right now, CJ, you follow? Is there one team?
No, I never really had a team. Vegas never really had a team. If I had to pick a team, I would say Lakers because that's where we're closer to LA. But I think I always, especially then when I played in the NBA, I was more profound to follow players and just, there was really no loyalty with teams. So, as a player, playing in it and being in the business, knowing it. So I would just follow players, but always, I love Steph and LeBron, KD. I like Anthony Edwards now. I like the Joker. So yeah, I just follow players now.
If you had to if somebody had to make a shot to win the game, and you're going to get them an open shot, you're going to run a play, and this you're going to get open, but you got to make it. Are you picking Steph or are you picking Ray Allen?
Ooh, that's tough. Can I pick who I want, or have to pick one of those two?
No, because you got to win. Pick who you want. First of all, you have to make a shot.
Yeah.
You have to make a shot. Game, we're down 1 or 2, whatever. It doesn't have to be a 3, but we got to make a basket. Timeout. Yeah. I'm running the play, and I know you're going to get open, but you got to make it. Who you picking to make that shot?
Kevin Durant, easy money sniper. He's 7 feet. You can't block his shot, so he's going to get a good look. I just got to give him in that mid range, coming off a down screen or something. So he'll make it for sure.
Yeah. What about KD or Larry Bird?
I love Larry, but I still got to go with KD. He's taller.
Yeah.
He's just silky smooth. It's just too easy for him.
Your generation. I got it. Well, CJ, here's what I want to say to you, man. Man, I'm extremely proud of you, and I watched you kind of grow up a little bit, as a younger guy, and followed your career. Had to coach against you, and then just what you've done. But really, more impressive, CJ, is what you've done after basketball. That to me, because like I mentioned, I know a lot of guys that struggle post basketball or post NFL or post pro career. They just struggle. You probably know a lot of them.
Yeah.
And the guys can't find their footing for whatever reason. A lot of times it leads to, trouble, or, guys have a bunch of money, they have time, they can't figure out what they want to do. But you have done such a good job with that. And so, number one, congratulations. But number two, just know I'm really, really proud of you and what you've done.
No, I appreciate it, man. Like I said, I always admired you from afar. At Alabama, when I played against you, one thing I want to know was, what was the scouting report against me at Tennessee? That's what I always want to ask guys, like former teammates. What was the scouting report, even in the league? Like, what did your coach tell you guys to do against me?
You were hard. I know that. You were hard to guard because you could penetrate. You were quick, but you could also shoot it. And so, I never wanted you to get an open shot. I can promise you that. If you got an open one, I wasn't happy at all in a timeout.
Yeah.
But one thing, too, I would say, CJ, is you had that some players are good players. Some players are winners, and I always felt like, especially late game situations, you're going to find a way. And so you were a pretty huge part of when we played against your team, especially late game. It was, we're not letting him beat us. Somebody else has to beat us, but it's not going to be him. Not going to be him.
No, Alabama was always tough, especially playing in Alabama, man. That was a tough place to play. It was always fun playing there.
Yeah, we had a great time. But CJ, really proud of you, man, and I'm rooting for you. And I hope people go and buy your books and your children's books. I hope they kind of study you, especially players, and study your career and really post-career too. I think, to me, that's as important as what you did as a player, is what you're doing now. And so, anyway, best of luck to you, man. I'm so thankful you came on the show today. Wonderful to have CJ Watson on the show. Thank you, CJ.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.